Hey everyone, welcome back. We're running a couple of minutes later, but another awesome session done by Emily Sandberg, and I'm really excited to chat and hear your perspective on the headcount. Emily is with a company called Cashflow Coaches, and she's going to talk about using financials to make smart staffing decisions. We all know that so many coaching businesses and companies right now hiring a bunch of people to maybe sometimes it is just to fix some of the tech problem that need to be done manually and they don't have capacity to automate some things for whatever reason. Oftentimes the headcount is a little bit overloaded, and I'm super excited to hear Emily this presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. Can you see my slideshow?
Yes, we can.
Okay. We are not where I wanted to be. Let's fix that. Hi, my name's Emily Sandberg, and I have a company called Cashflow Coaches. I've been working for the last 14 or 15 years helping companies fix watch their cash flow and make sure that their business can stay strong because they have the cash. I worked for 5 or 6 years in a brick and mortar, and I've been working with online businesses, mostly coaches, course creators for the last must be 8 or 9. So it's been really fun. And I'm excited to share with you some things that I see with my coaches who are making 750,000 up to 3, 4, $5 million a year. And one of the main things I see is that headcount or their staffing is one of their biggest expenses. So, employees are a special kind of expense. There are, for a couple of reasons, there are laws about hiring and firing. And if you don't know those laws, you should get familiar with them or have an HR person who is. You can't cancel people like you could a software subscription. So, other expenses have a little less emotional baggage that comes with them. And employees tend to be some of the higher emotional decisions that we make. The cost of wages only goes up. You might be able to find a coupon code for a software. You might be able to buy a program you've been waiting for on a flash sale or something, but wages only go up. And so be aware of that. When you're hiring someone, you're committing to pay them. That expense is most likely only going to go up. Many of the costs of an employee or any kind of staff member come at the beginning. Training is expensive. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of emotional bandwidth, and it takes money because you're typically paying the new employee as well as the person who's doing the training and someone to do that person's regular job as well sometimes. There can be competition for an employee as you get higher up. There may be another company that's trying to also get the same chief of operations or head marketing person that you're trying to get. And so you can get into a sort of a bidding war trying to lure that person. Lure sounds a little bit more negative than I want, but to entice that person to come and work for you. They're obviously looking for the best deal for themselves. So compensation is going to be a huge part of that. And there's also no customer service for employees. There's no demo period. There's no user manual. There's no customer service line you can call if things go wrong. Like, this isn't working. Can you help me out with this employee? No, it's you and Sally now. So you got to figure out how to manage her. And so I regularly encourage my clients to engage in some kind of leadership training so that they can manage what will be one of their most expensive and longest lasting investments in their business. So I've kind of gone through a lot of negative things. Why do we actually hire? We hire because people are amazing and people do the tasks that we can't do. They have skills and talents that we don't have. They are human. They're compassionate. They're driven. They're passionate about your business and the things that they do inside of it. And they are one of the best and biggest investments that we make as business owners. So it's important to note this. They're at this special kind of expense and that they have a lot of special cases around them. And then also it tends to be our biggest investment that we make in our business. So just to review, they're a special kind of expense, they're an amazing asset, and it's a skill to learn how to manage and increase your return on your people investment. Okay, so turning to financials. The first thing I always want you to know when you look at financials is, am I profitable? That is the bottom line. Top line is revenue. We like to spend a lot of time there. That's kind of a fun number to look at. But really, I want you to be looking at that bottom number that profit or loss number and know if you are profitable. And I want you to know how much. And for comparison across years, I want you to know what percentage. I typically recommend that a coaching business or a course creator business be at 20 to 60% profitability. If you are running a membership, that profitability starts out so small, often negative, but then it can grow really quickly. And so that would be a little bit different, but 20 to 60% for a general coaching business, course creator business. This is a very general recommendation. You could be higher than that. You could be less than that. I don't ever want you to be less than 10%. 10% is kind of minimum viable, and red flags should be going off at 10%. But at 20%, you can grow, you have cash to be able to put in reserve, and you can continue to grow. And so that's really once you get into the safety zone. Now, as we talk about this, I want you to remember there's a lot of emotions tied up with money. And so when I bring in things like this that say, well, you should be doing this or you should be doing that, you may notice triggering events inside of your body. That's okay. Just notice them, allow them to be there. You don't need to resist them. It can be uncomfortable to talk about money. And one of the things we do is give our clients a place to talk about money. We're all trained life coaches. So whether you work with us or someone else, have a person who you can talk about money with. It's a vulnerable place to be. There's no hiding. When I talk to my team, I'm often like, people are letting us into their underwear drawer. So we acknowledge that we're getting to see really behind the curtain of these businesses, and that can be uncomfortable. Don't take these numbers that I give you today and beat yourself up with them. Use them as data. Use them as ideas of possibility, things that could be happening. You can get there. A coaching business can absolutely get to a profit margin of 20 to 60%. Okay. Next thing I want you to know, I want you to be able to figure out, and if you can't do it right away, talk to your bookkeeper and figure out how to provide these numbers. How much of your expenses goes to staffing? And I don't want you to think just about W-2 employees. I want you to think about contractors and other people that are working inside your business. I want this to be 25 to 40% is the number. That's kind of the range where I've seen like safety. Like it's pretty much always safe when we're in that range. I've seen it be lower. That's pretty bare bones business. I've seen it be higher and I've seen it work higher. At one point, I had a client who had small children at home and she had decided she did not want to work as much until they were in school. So while they were very young and at home, she did not work much in the business. She showed up for meetings, she directed things, but she didn't do a lot of work and she didn't take much salary for herself. But once the kids went to school, she actually owned a membership. And so that the profitability had gone way up. Once the kids went to school, she came back into the business, more as a employee or worker inside the business and was able to take a really nice salary home. So her percentage was way over 40% when she was not working in the business. That's okay. She made it work for her. She was aware of the issue and she totally made it work. Okay, make sure to include other costs associated with headcount that we don't often think about. Users in your software. We use ClickUp in our business. And so every time we add a user, it's, I think, $100 a year or something. So that's one. We add into, you add them into Slack, you add them into a couple other softwares, and you're looking at a couple $100 a month. It could be a month. Sometimes it's just a year. But just remember, these are all costs associated with increased headcount. Any computers, monitors, any other hardware, maybe a chair you're sending or supplying for your staff if they're remote. If they're not remote, then you're furnishing an office for them. So that's an included cost. Any benefits or perks that you're offering. Attendance at team events. If you have team events and you're adding a person, that's obviously going to increase the cost pretty significantly, depending on how many you have at your team events to start with. But these are all things you need to remember as you're hiring. And we're going to hopefully have time to talk about that a little bit more. Okay. So once you've looked at your financials and you've discovered, like, this is my profit margin, this is how much I'm spending on staffing. The next thing I want you to really think about, and this is outside of your financials, but it's, what does my business need to deliver its product? And what your business needs is tasks to be completed. There's a set of tasks that go into delivering your product. There are marketing tasks, there are managing technology tasks, there are communication tasks. all kind of coaching tasks, video tasks, all of these. Your business needs tasks to be completed in order to deliver its product. The tasks are divided among roles, not people. I don't want you to be thinking about your staffing in terms of Heather and Kathy and Frank and John. I want you to be thinking about the roles inside of your business as head coach, director of operations, virtual assistant, marketing specialist. Why do we do that? Because that helps us pull a little bit of the emotion out of paying for people, paying for this biggest investment that your business makes. And it's not that we don't want to be emotional. It's not that we want to be unfair or any of that. It's that we cannot never quantify the value of Kathy in your business. But we can quantify the value of a bookkeeper. We can quantify the value of a coach. And so we cannot quantify the value of a person, but we can of a role in the business. And when we try to quantify the value of a person inside our business, that's where we get confused and we run into a lot of problems that often include overpaying, which is not, you would think that would be all daisies and roses for your employees, but it's not necessarily. Creates a lot of confusion. Your job is to pay a person to successfully fulfill a role in your business, not to just not just to be there. The business is paying for results in a role. I want to make sure that is clear. I continue to say that. It will continue to come up today. Okay. Actually, I don't want to go there. Next, I want to go to a sample P&L. And I've created this P&L I try to make it really simple. The only real detail I put in is this payroll detail. And really it's not necessarily just W-2 payroll. It is staffing expenses. So we have a business here, total revenue in this great year. You notice this tab is called great year, is $3.3 million. They had a good year. Cost of sales at $170,000. That's 5% of total revenue. Here's payroll. Got the CEO at $250,000. We've got their head of operations at $125,000. Here's a sales and marketing salary, director of coaching, customer service person. We've got an ad agency that we pay. Obviously, the ad agency isn't going to be on W-2 unless you have an individual person. So this is more of a contractor payment.
Emily, really quick, you are not sharing your spreadsheet.
Oh,
We're always sharing the presentation.
share this tab instead.
There
How's
you
that?
go.
Okay. Here, let me orient you to the spreadsheet, 3.3 million. Here is our payroll. Again, this is a mix of W-2 employees and contractor pay. Our total payroll is $890,000 a year. That's 27%. That's a nice number. That's a nice low number. I've thrown in some other general expenses. Actually, employer payroll taxes is about 7.65% of your payroll. Benefits, I kind of made what might be a low estimate, just depends on the company. Marketing, I've got it 500,000 here. Lots can be covered in marketing. It's not necessarily just paid ads. We've got software expenses at 30 grand a year, office. We've got some education and training for whomever needs it. And then travel and kind of miscellaneous. I wanted to put this business at about 60% expenses. We've got 43% profit margin. What comes out after profit is taxes. So I've got it. Here it is. It's 15% of the total business revenue, but it's 35% of profit. That is probably the low end for this business. They may pay more than that. I put it really conservatively because I'm going to make a point here of the kind of thing that I see as I'm working with clients. So taxes at 35%, then we're going to put 32% of our profit into reserve. That's $450,000 this year. We could spend another 3 sessions on how much do I need to have in reserve. Quick answer right now is when I look at total payroll, I divided it by 12 right here. $75,000 a month is going to pay for staff. That's a number I want to pay attention to when I'm thinking about reserve. Another number is total expenses. So $157,000 a month equals this 1.8, almost 1.9 million a year. That $160,000 into 450,000, that gives me, I've got almost 3 months in this reserve. So not a ton there. It's not a huge amount. And then my owner draw on top of the owner salary, about 450,000. That's a nice number. Again, 30, about a third of the profit. And then this is money that's just left over. So we have this nice business. We're paying all of our people these nice salaries. We've got some benefits in there. These numbers can go up and down. I don't want to get into whether these numbers are right, but these are kind of what I took from what some of my clients are doing. This is what we sometimes see happens in the next year. We have a great year, and then next year we might see revenue fall. So instead of 3.3 million, you might have a $3 million year. It's very common. And a lot of really successful businesses, they came up through the six figures and they just grew and grew and grew. They went from 250,000 to 700,000 to 1.2 million to that 3.3 million. And it just came this nice 45-degree angle up. They just kept climbing. That's not typical. Very often we come up, we hit a nice revenue number, and then we fall the next year. And then we come up again, and then we fall a little bit more. And then we come up again. That's what's much more common. So this year, following the great year, we have the next year where revenue was down 10%, 9%. Not a huge amount. 10% decrease is not anything to freak out over. Cost of sales might be down. Let's say it goes down 10% as well. So we're at 153,000 here. Payroll, however, doesn't go down. There's never a time where we can go to our employees and say, well, revenue's down, so I'm going to cut your payroll. That's not true. It's not that we can't do that. It's that we don't typically do that. So payroll stays the same. In fact, people are actually probably looking for a raise, at least your W-2. A few of these are W-2. Your contractors may give themselves a raise, especially how about last year's inflation? People were giving themselves raises at that point because they needed to. So I just figured here, let's put in a 4% raise across the board. I'm just going to put it in the payroll, or sorry, in the total, 925,600. So we went up just 4% from 890 to 925. That's $35,000. Not a big amount on a $3 million budget. So there we are. Payroll came up about 4%. That increased employer payroll taxes a little bit. I kept benefits the same. Now, if your revenue is down, your marketing isn't generally going to go down. So I'm going to go ahead and increase marketing. Let's just add $50,000 there. Software could go up maybe as much as 10%. Let's give it a little bit less than 10%. I'm going to leave office supplies the same. Education and training, this might be coaching or courses that you take. I don't typically see education and training go down when revenue goes down. Typically, my clients are like, I need to learn some more things so that my revenue goes back up. So we're actually going to increase that kind of considerably also. As your staff grows and matures, you might be paying for education for them. So that's another thing that increases that role. And then I'm going to be real conservative and leave travel and miscellaneous the same. So as we compare, I now have $2 million in expenses versus last year I had 1.9 million. So we're up just a little bit. We're down just 10% in revenue, 9% really. What does that do? My expenses are now 68% of my revenue, whereas last year they were 57. That reduces my profit margin to 32%. So we had revenue come down and expenses go up, which hurts profit from both sides. So now we have 32% profit. Our taxes, we're going to pay less in taxes. I kind of hate that. I love paying less in taxes, but it's a good marker that I'm making more money when I pay more in taxes. Still 35% of profit. Reserve. I don't really want to drop my reserve because now my monthly expenses have actually gone up. I'm at 77,000 a month in payroll. And these expenses are, this is actually 12 month or a monthly at 170, almost 170. And I'm probably not going to take, I don't see people reducing their owner draw because on that great year, they bought the house or they remodeled the house. They put the kids in private school, all of these things that we now believe we've arrived at and that we need. Well, what happens down here? This is negative now. Remember last year we had a little surplus, 17,000. This year we're down 275,000. Where does that come from? That's going to come out of reserve if we don't change anything else. So now I have reserve, thankfully, but it's dropping. My expenses are going up. My reserve is dropping. What I hope you're seeing, and we're going to pause for questions here real quick. What I hope you're seeing is how quickly, how these little changes, just a 9% decrease in revenue, a 4% increase in your payroll. And then let's see, this was 50,000 and then about 125, maybe 127, $130,000 increase in expenses. $130,000 is not a lot of money compared to a $3 million in revenue. But look at the difference it made from year to year. This now being like a $300,000 swing almost. So I'd like to stop here and see if we have any questions. And it's okay if we don't. I have other stuff that we can do, but if you do have a question, I wanted to stop and take it now. Okay. Natalie, I can't see any comments or any raised hands. So I'm going to keep going. I have one more thing that I would love to show people, and we've got a few more minutes.
Please do. We did have a problem with our chat. I connected support. At this point, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and raise your hand, and then you can just ask your question live. That is also an option. But Emily, go on and whatever you wanted to share. I think this is a good time.
Okay. I am going to go ahead and share my screen one more time.
In the meantime, anyone has any questions, raise your hand, and I'll just have you join the stage, and you can ask your question live.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so as I've watched my clients hiring and seeing that they didn't quite understand the full effect that hiring would have on their cash, I created this tool right here. We're just going to look at the top line right here. What I have, these lines in gray are the areas that we enter in, and then the white is where the spreadsheet does the work. We have $1 million business with $750,000 in expenses. So that's a 25% profit margin, $250,000 in profit. They want to hire a salesperson, and they think it's going to cost them about $60,000 in annual salary. And then I always ask them to think about other costs. What else are you going to spend on? It's going to be a new computer. It's going to be maybe a stipend for health insurance or adding them to the health insurance program for the company. It's going to be possibly that new software that we talked about. It's going to be having them attend the retreat. Whatever it is, add those numbers up. Let's give it an annual number. And so here we kind of figured out the total cost to hire this person is going to be about $78,000. So then the spreadsheet says, well, your profit is now going to go from 250,000 down to 172,000, just adding these expenses. That new margin is 17%. That's a little low. That's below our 20%. I don't want you to start hiring when you're at 20% or below. I want you to wait till you get above so that you can bring your profit margin down to 20%, but let's try not to go below it. But what my clients will tell me is, well, I'm going to add, this person is expected to add revenue. It's a salesperson, for heaven's sake. And I expect them to add about $200,000 of revenue a year. Total guess, but that's respectable. That's what we want to have happen. And I like to set this up ahead of time in your mind so that you can be setting your KPIs. Let's decide. Well, let's hire this person, see what happens, and let's make sure they're delivering on the results that we expect from the role, right? Okay, so if they bring in $200,000, we add that to 172,000. Our new profit margin, in theory, is 31% or $372,000. Great. But let's think about what happens in the near term. Almost immediately, if we take this 78,000 and divide it by 12, we get 6,500. So immediately we add 6,500 in expenses. Now that's assuming that these other costs are spread out over 12 months. They actually you could be front loading some of those if it's things you're offering right up front. But let's assume that it's spread out over 12 months. So immediately we add $6,500 in expenses. Very often we see that we offer a 90-day probationary period. It takes some time to get a new person onboarded and really producing the way we expect them to. So I gave myself 90 days of new costs here. That's 3 times this number. So right away, I can see that they're going to cost me $20,000 in that first 3 months. But what do I expect? How much of this $200,000 do I expect to bring in? So I'll ask my client, what do you think? Month 1 through month 6, how much are they going to produce? In month 6, the spreadsheet actually tells you if they're producing linearly, if they're producing an even amount across 12 months to get to that 200,000 mark, then they're going to produce this much money, $16,000 a month. But that's not going to be the first month or the second probably, or the third. So we just kind of ramp this up gradually, and the client gets to decide what these numbers will be. But what happens after 6 months, after we have 6 months of this cost and this revenue coming in? Our increased profit is only $18,000. So after 6 months of this person that we think is going to bring 200,000, if we guessed right here, they're only going to bring in about $19,000. That improves our profit margin to 20%. So that's a real eye opener for my clients that it takes a significant amount of time to really see the return on that person. We can change this number. We can change the number by bumping this up faster. But again, we just want to be aware of it. Now, you can also use this tool, which I will share with you, to see what if I let go of somebody? What if I get rid of a $75,000 salary? And what ends up happening there? You can see we come across and we say, well, after 6 months, we'll have this much in profit. So it's a useful tool for us to be able to see what happens when we hire someone. I think we are. Do you want me to keep going or do you want me to end? Because I know that
When Yeah, we do have to come to closure for this session. We do have another session coming up. Emily, I thank you so much for sharing so much of the expertise there, and clearly seeing how the spreadsheets and the calculations and making smarter decisions based on this financial planning and dual high level planning is going to be so helpful. And I really hope that I think majority of the coaching businesses that are watching this already take advantage of this, but seeing you actually doing and going through those spreadsheets and making some calculations and guesses, seeing how this can impact the bottom line was really helpful. How can our audience reach out to you and connect with you and get access to the spreadsheets that you just shared?
awesome. Okay, can I share the links with you and then you share?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll share with everyone. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'm at cashflowcoaches.com and it's just Emily at cashflowcoaches.com for my email address.
This was a very dense session. Thank you so much, Emily, for your time.
Thank you.
Everyone, we'll
Bye-bye.
see you in the next session.